Hello everyone, I'm Nicola Taylor, COO at ScotlandIS. We are the trade body and cluster management organisation for the digital tech sector in Scotland. And today we are launching our series of ScotlandIS Tech Tidbits, which take place on the first Tuesday of every month at 11:30. These sessions last 30 minutes and are designed to educate you on areas that you might want to know more about, encourage you to innovate with your newfound knowledge, and potentially collaborate with the hosts. Today, we are delighted to welcome Stu Harwood from Siker Cyber, who chats with ScotlandIS Head of Cyber Beverly Bowles about conducting business in North Africa as a UK SME. We hope that you find today's session useful. Thank you.
So I'll just do a quick rundown about some of the Siker services and then how we managed to get into Africa. So Siker's been a company that's been around for around 11 years. As Bev alluded to, we are primarily a training and awareness company in the ICS OT space. We do some consultancy around risk assessments and other bits and pieces in the professional services market. They're mainly in ICS OT, but we deal quite frequently with military contracts and MOD contracts as well. It's been something that's been run by my dad, for Tim Harwood, since the inception in 2013. So if you're in Aberdeen, say hello to him. He's up there representing in Aberdeen at the moment. And at the moment, we're in El Alamein, which is on the north coast of Egypt, for the Egyptian International Air Show. It's the second running of the air show. They're trying to make it very much like Farnborough. They're trying to make it something that where outsiders can come in and have a look at all the fantastic aircraft that are being built and all the defence projects that are being put forward from other North African nations. And there's about 5,000 people signed up to come. The President Sisi, was here this morning. He was here from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m., but he's just left. So all the embassy staff and foreign dignitaries were allowed into the air show in the morning, and private companies were sort of banned until 3 p.m. So we will be going to the air show very soon. So if we start sort of towards the beginning, Siker have been in Egypt since COVID, so roughly December 2020. It's not a market that we sought out. It was the way that we came into the market was through another company. We were working with another company in the Emirates, and they won a contract here in Egypt, and they couldn't service it. So we were asked to subcontract it until they were able to service it, and that's sort of our first inception into Egypt. And I'm very glad that happened, because it's been nothing but good for Siker since then. We've been here for 3 years. We've done roughly 15 visits. We actually have 3 staff that live here now. We have 3 staff that live in Hurghada, which is on the south east coast of Egypt, and they service our contracts in Cairo quite frequently. And it's something that we're looking to push on, and something that we're looking to expand in the future, because I truly believe that there is some fantastic projects coming on here. I'm going to mainly talk about Egypt, because that's where most of our experience is. We have serviced some contracts in Morocco also. Most of them are on hold at the moment, just because of the state of their economy, and there's other political things that are going on. I don't want to go into that, but we're mainly providing our services into Egypt at the moment. So if there's any questions in the chat, let's make it quite an open forum as well. So our first foray was a contract where we provided some professional services to one of the branches of the government here. And that was 2021, 2022, 2023. We still sort of service it at the moment, but on a sort of unofficial level. And the way that we sort of provided this contract was, it was very much a design and build contract. They wanted some services internal to their department that they currently couldn't serve. So we designed the building, the room, not the actual building from an architectural level, but the inside of the room from a hardware and a software perspective. We procured all of the hardware and software from various different elements, mainly from Saudi and the UAE, and then we shipped everything across to Egypt. We had some friends within the customs, which made things a little bit easier, and customs can be a bit of a trip up here. And then we did the implementation, the installation. That we then did some tool training because the guys here didn't need the basic training. They already had been to college and they'd been to university to do penetration testing and forensics and all the cybersecurity subjects that we'd come to know and love. But they needed specific tool training for the actual elements that they wanted to use. And then we just supported them on an ongoing basis after that. So anytime anything broke or they wanted a new tool or they wanted a renewal, that's where we would come in. So we've been doing that for about 3 years now. We've done roughly 15 trips for that nature. We've also done some education contracts here, so some bespoke education to some OT companies. So that's where the OT part came in. We took some of our standard courses, and where we had to adjust them was more around the legal and the ethics, because in the EU and in the UK, we have very similar laws, we have very similar ethics, but with the culture that is in North Africa, everything's slightly different. So we had to rewrite some of the courses to be in line with the culture that's out here, and that's one of the things that I think people have to consider when they're looking at contracts out here. Is everything's just ever so slightly different. So that's a little bit of an introduction to what we've done here. Do we want to do like a first question, or how do we want to run the next bit? You're on mute, Bev.
Yeah, we can run through some questions that we've got, and I think some are going to be put into the chat. But just firstly, before you started the contracts there, did you do any kind of market research to find out what you were going to be going into?
We did no market research, and it was a mistake. It was a mistake. I think my advice to companies that are in the UK is if they're interested in this market, talk to other UK companies. There are not many UK companies here. I can count on two hands how many UK companies I've encountered out here. Make sure that you get some advice off of them. And my biggest piece of advice going into this market is talk to FCDO and DBT, because they have some fantastic resources on the ground here. We spend quite a lot of time in the UK Embassy in Cairo just talking to the DBT advisors on who to talk to, what not to approach, what contracts to avoid, what contracts to go after, mainly because they've got the experience. A lot of them have been in the country for 20, 25 years, or they're Egyptian nationals that work for the British Embassy. So they have fantastic connections. And also the one other thing is we actually work with a company here now called Synergies. I'll put the name in the chat later because it's spelled slightly differently. And they're actually a market research company. So we do some market research now, which we didn't do in the beginning. And my advice would be maybe seek out a company like that has the experience in the area, that can do some market research, that do have good connections, because there are opportunities here. There are fantastic opportunities here, and there are fantastic opportunities in Morocco also. So maybe look at a private company and also talk to your DBT advisors and your FCDO advisors.
Why do you think there aren't very many UK companies working out there?
That's a fantastic question that we ponder quite often, actually. I think it's two-barreled. I think one is the marketing or the awareness around it. I don't think many companies in the UK are actually aware that there's so many opportunities out here, and in Morocco and in Tunisia, although Tunisia is a bit more unstable at the moment. But I think it's more the awareness level that there are opportunities here, or on the second piece of this, maybe they're scared to look into it because it's a completely different culture, completely different market. If you were to go to maybe a Dubai or an Abu Dhabi, it's a very similar culture to what we have at home. But North Africa is completely separate. It's completely new. If there's one, again, the advice I would give is take the plunge. Come out here, spend 5 days here, spend 5 days with your DBT advisors here, and reach out to many different companies, because they're all willing to talk. And as soon as they know that you're from the UK, they open their arms to you. They're very, very friendly out here. So I think it's those two aspects: the lack of awareness and the lack of marketing. And FCDO are trying to change this, right? So they want to be bringing more UK companies into the North African markets. And the second one is I don't want to say it's scared, but the uncertainty about pivoting into a market like this. If you could just tell people, don't be uncertain, just take the leap, then it would be so much better. But yeah, I can count. I think I only know about 6 UK companies, and we're one of them that work here. Right. So And actually, two of the companies that work here are our partners now. So, yeah. Now, there are other UK companies. Now, I'm just talking about cybersecurity. Obviously, there are oil and gas companies and water companies and mobile phone companies that work here. I'm just talking about cybersecurity. There are other UK companies that are coming to the air show that I haven't met before, and that's because we've been working with the Egyptian British Chamber of Commerce, and they've done a really, really good job of spreading the word, marketing, that Egypt is open for business type thing. So we're planning on meeting these other UK companies because we feel like we're stronger together, right? Partnerships
absolutely.
are always stronger. So, yeah.
So
Sorry,
you mentioned that you had to source hardware from other countries to bring in to Egypt. Was there any issues with sort of supply chain, any risks within that, or ensuring product quality from different countries?
I would say not really, because we were still sourcing it from the countries, sorry, not from the countries, from the companies that we would trust. So, for example, all the firewalls that we bought were from Fortinet. So we knew that if it was a Fortinet firewall, it's probably going to be the same quality as what we get in the United States or in the UK. They would all pass through the Emirates or Qatar first, and we have people in these countries that can open the boxes and make sure that they're legit products. And what I would say is we just try to source them from other Arab countries because it's easier for the customs to come in. But in my experience, all the quality is the same. Now, saying that, we bought a handful of servers for one of the contracts, and two of them were broken. But I think that's because customs tried to maybe open them and see what was inside. But that's a different story. So, yeah, I find that the quality is pretty good. Maybe not directly here in Egypt, but if you use Qatar, Saudi Arabia, these other Gulf countries, I feel like the quality is still pretty good. Yeah. And most companies like the Ciscos, the Fortinets, the HPs, the Dells, all have massive markets out in the Gulf. So the hardware is actually pretty easy to find. Yeah.
And is there a big difference in working in the African markets to the Saudi and Gulf markets?
So I haven't personally worked in Saudi. I've only worked in the Emirates before, but I found it's very similar. Obviously, the culture and the religion's exactly the same. So, Ramadan's, you've got to be very careful of Ramadan. You've got to be very careful about prayer times. You've got to be, age-old thing. You're not allowed to touch ladies, so you're not allowed to shake ladies' hands, for example, and these other customs. You have to be aware of these customs when you come here. But I find that as long as you follow the customs, it's very similar, very, very similar. So, no, I think if you've been to Saudi or Qatar, another Gulf country, you'll find it very, very similar over here. And in fact, I personally think that the Egyptian people are a lot more open. I think they're a lot more forward and open here. And we have a lot of really good conversations with some very random people. So, yeah.
And how did you go about sort of establishing trust and building relationships with the people that you're speaking to, particularly when you're working with the military and government agencies?
So we were very lucky in the beginning that we almost what's the word that I'm looking for here? We got a good word in from the Emirati government because we were working with them before. I think if you were coming fresh into the market, it is a good question, because if you're a completely fresh company and you've not had that credibility from another country, or a Qatar or a friendly country to Egypt, it's going to be quite difficult. Where I think that comes in is local partnerships or UK partnerships. So from another perspective, if you were to come in and help, Siker or another big company out here is BAE Systems, right? They're one of our competitors. They're exhibiting at the air show, but another UK company, and you were to, okay, I've got a contract in Egypt, I'm very interested in it, but I have no credibility. If you were to go and ask BAE Systems or myself or another company out here, we would probably put in the good word for you. The other one is local partnerships here. There are quite a lot of really good local cybersecurity companies, and they don't have the capacity to do what the government is asking, which is why they outsource to the UK and to the US and to Russia. So in that perspective, we actually had a really good meeting last night with a local cybersecurity company about capacity. Maybe try and look at having a local partnership with one of the companies here. And then the third point would maybe be looking at coming to a conference. So there was a conference back in, I think, June called CDIS, CDIS. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it was a cybersecurity conference that was run by the government. And also you've got the air show just now, and then there's another conference in November. I think if you were to come to the conferences, ask for help from DBT or ask for help from a local partner and approach it that way, rather than just go fresh out the bat, then you're probably going to be more successful.
In terms of cybersecurity and maturity in the North African market, so what stage are they at compared to, say, the UK or the US?
Well, they're definitely not at the same level as the UK or the US. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. You know, I know that some companies or some people come out here and they think it's just non-existent. That's not the case. And in most cases, they have a very good base level, or they at least acknowledge that they have to have a base level of cybersecurity or a cybersecurity awareness at least. They're probably not at the same level as what the UK or Europe or Russia or the United States are, but they're probably far, far ahead of their North African neighbours, I would say, or even Central Africa as well. So if you think about it, a multi-tiered model, they're above the first step, but they're not much higher than that. So where we try to look at it is if we are trying to do our training and awareness sessions in the UK at level 2 or level 3, here we're probably doing level 1. We're not doing level 0, but we're doing level 1. So
Okay.
We've had some very, very positive conversations about the awareness campaigns out here. And what's very encouraging about the government in Egypt and also in Morocco as well is I have identified that there is a need for this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very, very committed to putting money into the investment for upskilling children. So when they go through high school, when they go through college, university, doing modules in cybersecurity, whether it's basic cybersecurity or penetration testing or malware analysis, they're very committed to adding these modules in. And then also they're also committed for the military leavers as well. So in Egypt, I'm not sure about Morocco, I'm not as aware of this, but you have to do mandatory military service here from the age of, I think it's 19 to 20, you have to do at least 1 year. And so the government are really committed to the retraining program when people leave of doing the basics of cybersecurity so that when they come out, they have something to go to. And what you have to realize here is that 68% of the population is between the age of 18 and 30. So there's a big population there to train. And the government is very, very, very aware of the issue, and they're committed to that problem. So it's good to see. We've had some very, very good conversations with the government about it. So
you mentioned earlier on when we spoke before about working with UNICEF, and is that tied into the thing you're talking about there with educating young people and sort of online safety?
Yeah, I think it goes in 2 prongs. So I think what I was just talking about is more about the education so that you can come out and do a job. The UNICEF part would be more about just general awareness so that people are sanitized online. You know, the one thing that they're really worried about out here is propaganda. So disinformation campaigns from various elements that I probably don't want to discuss on here, but they do disinformation campaigns out here and they throw propaganda over walls, and they also do it online. So one of the things that are very, very committed to, and UNICEF are very committed to, is doing almost like a baseline awareness level for the age of like 4 to 16, so that they're aware that these disinformation campaigns exist and that what the signs are and what to look out for. And that's what they're very committed to. Now, the next level across that is, okay, now let's do a basic level of cybersecurity as well, so that you don't fall into a stalker, or something like that, which again, it can be a problem out here. So there's some awareness campaigns going on about that, and that's one of the UNICEF programs, is to try and educate youngsters about these issues.
Brilliant. And have you had any success yourself in improving cybersecurity within governmental departments through some of the contracts that you've had?
Yes, we can't go too much into it, but yes, we've dealt with some of the contracts between 2020 and now, where we have seen a really big increase in knowledge level, and probably maturity level is probably the best word for it. When we first came into the government department that we're talking about in 2020, I wouldn't say it wasn't mature, because that's not the word that I'm looking for, but they probably had a lot to learn about specific tools or specific techniques. They had base knowledge. You know, they had been to college, they had done electrical college, or they had done technical college, and they had 3 or 4 years experience in whatever area it was that they were working in, but they didn't have the specific hands-on experience. And I think that can be a problem everywhere. I don't think that's just a problem here. It just happened to be in this department that they wanted to be more mature in that method. And so what we were allowing them to do with the campaigns that we were putting in is, it wasn't about sort of the teaching element, but it was about putting a problem in front of them and almost doing like a problem solving campaign within that technique. So an example would be, instead of just saying, okay, here's in your penetration testing cycle, scanning, reconnaissance, exploitation, pivoting, command and control, it was, here's a box, what's on it? You know, you have to figure out, you've got the base knowledge of how to do penetration testing, so we're not going to teach you that. But specifically with the tools that we're giving you, if we give you a Raspberry Pi, you've got to tell me what's on here. And then they would have 2 days to go away and do it. And then we would do more about the tool training and the specific techniques that they want to use in that. So I think it was, again, if we look at the maturity model, they weren't at level 0, but they weren't very mature. So yeah, we had some great success with that. And I actually think that that's probably consistent across most government departments here.
So you having to take staff over there to fulfill the contracts, or are you able to use staff that are on the ground and recruit from within the country?
So originally we just took UK staff or staff from Abu Dhabi across. 3 of our staff live in Hurghada now, so it's easy just to tell them, okay, can you take the 4-hour drive from Hurghada to Cairo, which is what they're going to be doing in October. We've got another project kicking off in October. However, we are looking at local representation, whether that's either through a partnership or whether it's hiring staff here, because of the projects that we've got kicking off. I think companies maybe need to be a little bit more open-minded about hiring talent on the ground here. Some of the people that we've talked to are incredibly gifted human beings. They're very, very good at what they do. Again, if you just pick a subject, they've got fantastic knowledge in it, and they're just waiting to be given a chance. On the flip side of that, what we do here is that a lot of Egyptian nationals like to be trained, have 2 years experience, and then they leave for a Dubai or they leave for a Saudi Arabia for a lot more money. And what the government's trying to do is keep the talent within Egypt, whilst not trying to just train them to leave. They want to train them to stay. So they're trying to increase pay packets or benefits, or there's a lot of incentives for outside companies to come and hire local representation and have an office here, and trying to make sure that they build the company here, but without letting the local representation leave. So that's a real problem that they've got. But it is something that I think a lot more UK companies need to be maybe a little bit more open-minded about, for sure. There's some very, very good people here. Very, very good. There's equally some not very good people here as well. You just have to, but that's the same in the UK. So yeah.
And did you experience any challenges when it came to sort of finance, or getting the contracts and things like that up and running and seeing them through?
There are some financial challenges here. What I would say is, when dealing with specifically the government, it's not as challenging, because we can use the resources in UK Export Finance and FCDO to help supplement, the programs over here, and almost have backing. So it's actually quite a good campaign. So again, we have a UK Export Finance director here in Cairo. I'm not in Cairo, but in Egypt, and we just talked to him if there's campaigns coming up that we want to bid on. In general, what I would recommend is, if you ever price something over here, don't do it in Egyptian pounds, do it in US dollars, because the Egyptian pound is plummeting by the day and the economy is shrinking. So, it's something that I would never recommend. US dollar is king out here. So whenever we bring cash over here, we always bring US dollar. We don't use local currency, because everybody just wants the dollar. So always price in dollar. And we always recommend taking 30% up front. The way that we try and work the contracts is we go 30, 30, 40, and that last 40% is your profit, right? So the two first 30% payments are you pay your staff, pay your flights, accommodation, whatever, hardware, software, whatever it might be, and then the last payment is your profit. So and generally we've had no problems with that. Now, the one thing I would say is, in the UK, our standard terms are 30 or 60 days. Over here, it might be 90 to 120 days, and you just have to sort of deal with that because that's the way that they work. But yeah, we've not faced any massive issues. We've had smaller issues, but again, that's standard in the UK as well. So, and if we've ever had an issue, we just go straight to the UK embassy and we ask for their advice. I can't emphasize how much the UK embassy have helped us. DBT, FCDO, UK Export Finance have helped us over here. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think we just got time for one last question, and it's you're using market research now. Do you use any local marketing agencies or advertising for outward marketing efforts?
So we use we would call it a market research agency. They do help us with advertising as well. The problem is here you don't advertise. You use your connections to find out about projects. It's not more. There's a lot more connection to connection, word of mouth going on here than there is a big billboard with the Siker logo on, call Siker about cybersecurity now. So when we're doing our market research and we don't really do marketing here. It's more market research. It's a specific government department or private company, for example, it could be Vodafone, because Vodafone's massive out here. And we know that they've got a specific project, then we would do a little bit of market research, and then we would go about, okay, who knows the CISO, or who knows the chief engineer at this point, or whoever it might be, and go in that way. So marketing's not really a thing that we've explored. I don't think we will explore it for now. I don't think it's necessary. I can't emphasize how many opportunities there are here. I think you would be almost inundated with it. So, yeah, we always would use word of mouth and direct connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's more about making the most of all those opportunities that are coming along than seeking other stuff. So that's us.
Sorry, just
Stu.
There's one final point that I have to make. And here it's all about relationships. And what we do see the stumbling block being when other companies from Europe or America come, is they immediately come and talk about projects, and they immediately come and talk about specific, funding, whatever it might be. What I've found is the local representation here like to talk about kids, football, culture, religion. They want to talk about something else. To talk about the Air Force projects that's going on. It's not the way to do it. How many kids have you got? All right, tell me about them. Where do they go to school? Do you like, everyone loves Mohamed Salah, right? What do you think about Mohamed Salah? What do you think about Liverpool? What was about the result last night? Did you watch the World Cup? Whatever it might have been. And everyone either watches football, plays football, or they do something like that out here. I would absolutely recommend doing the relationship building first. We almost go into relationships now and not even market in the first meeting. It's normally the second meeting that we go after the project. So I can't emphasize enough about how much the relationship counts here.
That's really interesting. So yeah, making the most of getting to know people, and then they get to know you better before they go into business with you.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what you said as well about the other agencies, the British agencies that are there on the ground to help you, FCDO and DBT, that a lot of companies won't necessarily be aware of, that they're there to assist. That's been really interesting, Stuart. Really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much for that. And we'll close off now, and best of luck at the air show, and catch up with you when you're back in Scotland soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if anyone's got any other further questions or they want more information, just email me. The other thing is Siker's here to help other UK companies as well. I truly
I think we'll just stop it there because he's hung again. You've hung a few times there, Stuart, so I think we're just going to stop it now. Okay.
No
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye just now. Bye.
A huge thank you to Stu Harwood from Siker Cyber for sharing his insights and experiences of working in the North African market. And if you would like any additional information or to chat to Stuart directly, please do feel free to reach out, and we will be more than happy to make an introduction. Make sure that you check out the events page and follow ScotlandIS on socials to keep up to date with the rest of our ScotlandIS Tech Tidbit sessions. Thank you for joining us today.